when I heard 5 sets of boots marching in perfect synchronization toward the latrine building where I was scrubbing toilets. I knew my carefully hidden life was about to be exposed. And when the lead colonel asked, "Where is Phoenix?" I realized there was no hiding anymore. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 29 years old, and 3 weeks ago I was a decorated tactical operations officer in the United States Marine Corps. Today, I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing the 3rd toilet in a row of 12, wearing rubber gloves that had holes in them, and smelling like industrial cleaner mixed with things I didn't want to think about. The latrine building at Camp Pendleton was old, probably built in the 70s, and it showed. Cracked tiles, rust stains that wouldn't come out no matter how hard I scrubbed, and a persistent smell that clung to everything. I had been assigned latrine duty for 3 weeks. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, cleaning toilets, mopping floors, scrubbing urinals, and emptying trash bins filled with things that made my stomach turn. This was my punishment for insubordination. At least, that's what the official paperwork said. The real reason? I had made the mistake of being right when my commanding officer was wrong. I dipped my brush back into the bucket of cleaning solution and attacked another stubborn stain. My back ached from bending over. My hands were raw despite the gloves. And my pride, well, that had been ground into dust somewhere around day 5. 3 weeks ago, I had been Captain Rebecca Chen, tactical operations specialist, respected by my peers, trusted with complex mission planning. I had an office with my name on the door. I had Marines who saluted me when I walked by. Now I was just the woman who cleaned the toilets. Nobody looked at me anymore. When Marines came into the latrine and saw me there, they either ignored me completely or made jokes at my expense. Some of them didn't even know I was an officer. They just saw a woman in a dirty utility uniform with a mop bucket. I had tried to maintain dignity at first, kept my uniform as clean as possible, responded with "yes sir" and "no sir" when officers spoke to me, which was rare. But after 3 weeks, I had stopped caring about dignity. I just wanted to get through each day. The door to the latrine building opened, and I heard footsteps, heavy boots on tile. I didn't look up, just kept scrubbing. Probably just another Marine coming to use the facilities. They'd do their business, maybe make a comment about how I missed a spot and leave. But these footsteps were different. Multiple sets, moving in perfect military cadence. And they stopped. I looked up. 5 men stood in the doorway of the latrine building. All of them in Marine Corps dress uniforms. All of them wearing rank insignia that made my stomach drop. Colonels. 5 full bird colonels. I immediately started to stand, to come to attention, but one of them held up a hand. "As you were." I stayed on, my knees, brush still in hand, staring at them. The lead colonel was tall, maybe 6'3", with silver hair and a chest full of ribbons that included 2 Purple Hearts and a Navy Cross. His nameplate read, Harrison. He looked around the latrine with an expression of disgust. "This is where they have her?" he said to the others. "According to the duty roster, yes, sir." Another colonel replied, checking a tablet. "Assigned to sanitation detail, Building 7, latrine facilities." "Unbelievable," Harrison muttered. He looked directly at me. "Marine, what's your name?" I stood up slowly, setting down the brush. "Captain Rebecca Chen, sir." "Captain?" Harrison's eyebrows shot up. "You're an officer?" "Yes, sir." "And they have you cleaning toilets?" "I'm serving disciplinary action, sir. 3 weeks latrine duty for insubordination." Harrison's jaw tightened. He exchanged glances with the other colonels. "Captain Chen." Do you know someone with the operational call sign Phoenix? My heart stopped. That name, that call sign. I hadn't heard it in months. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. Captain? Harrison said more firmly, this is important. Do you know Phoenix? I swallowed hard. Yes, sir. I know Phoenix. Where can we find them? We need Phoenix immediately. It's a matter of national security. The other colonels were all watching me intently now. I looked down at my dirty gloves, at the toilet brush in the bucket beside me, at the pathetic state I had been reduced to. Then I looked back at Colonel Harrison and spoke the words that would change everything. Sir, Phoenix is my operational call sign. I'm Phoenix. The silence that followed was absolute. Harrison stared at me, then at the toilet I had been scrubbing, then back at me. You're Phoenix? He repeated slowly, as if testing whether the words made sense. Yes, sir. The Phoenix? The tactical officer who planned Operation Guardian Shield? Yes, sir. The Phoenix who saved 500 Marines with an unconventional extraction plan that every expert said was impossible? I felt my throat tighten. Yes, sir. That's me. Harrison's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, disbelief, and then something that looked like barely controlled rage. He turned to one of the other colonels. Get me Colonel Marks on the phone. Right now. Sir, that's the base commander. He's in a meeting with... I don't care if he's meeting with the president. Get him here. Immediately. The colonel pulled out his phone and made the call. Harrison turned back to me, and his expression softened slightly. Captain Chen, when was the last time you worked in tactical operations? 3 weeks ago, sir. The day before I was assigned to latrine duty. And why were you assigned to latrine duty? I hesitated. This was the dangerous part. The part where I had to choose between protecting myself and telling the truth. Sir, I questioned a tactical decision made by Lieutenant Colonel Morrison during a planning session. I believed his approach would result in unnecessary casualties. I presented an alternative plan, and he disagreed. Said I was being insubordinate by questioning a superior officer. He filed a formal complaint and had me removed from the tactical operations team. What happened to Morrison's plan? It was implemented 2 weeks ago during a training exercise. 6 Marines were injured. The exercise was deemed a failure. My alternative plan was reviewed afterward and found to be superior in every metric. Harrison's eyes were cold steel now. So you were right. Yes, sir, I was right. And you were punished for it. Yes, sir. He looked at the other colonels. Gentlemen, we have a problem. Before anyone could respond, the door burst open and another officer strode in. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, the man who had put me here. He was 45 years old, with thinning brown hair and a perpetual scowl. He looked at the 5 colonels with surprise, then saw me, and his scowl deepened. Colonel Harrison, I received an urgent message that you needed to see me. Yes, Morrison. I need you to explain something to me. Harrison gestured to me. Why is Captain Rebecca Chen, call sign Phoenix, one of the most talented tactical officers in the Marine Corps, scrubbing toilets? Morrison's face reddened. Sir, Captain Chen was disciplined for insubordination. She undermined my authority in front of junior officers and refused to follow proper chain of command protocols. Harrison pulled out his own tablet and pulled up something on the screen. According to this after-action report from your training exercise 2 weeks ago, your tactical plan resulted in 6 injured Marines and a complete mission failure. Is that correct? Morrison's jaw tightened. There were unforeseen complications, sir. And according to this secondary review, Harrison continued, Captain Chen's alternative plan which you rejected, would have resulted in 0 casualties and mission success. Is that also correct? Morrison said nothing. Harrison stepped closer to him. Let me be very clear, Lieutenant Colonel. Captain Chen didn't undermine your authority. She tried to save lives. She tried to do her job. And you punished her because your ego couldn't handle being corrected by a subordinate. Sir, with respect. You will be silent, Harrison snapped. I'm not finished. He looked at the other colonels. Gentlemen, 3 weeks ago, the Pentagon put out a priority request for Phoenix. We need her to plan a critical extraction operation in hostile territory. We've been searching every base, every station, trying to locate her. We were told she had been transferred but couldn't find transfer orders. He turned back to Morrison. Now I know why. Because you buried her in a latrine building, hoping everyone would forget about her. That's not true, sir. I simply... Did you or did you not block her transfer requests? Morrison's silence was answer enough. Did you or did you not remove her security clearances? Sir, I felt she was not mentally fit for tactical operations after her insubordination. That's not your call to make, Harrison said, his voice dangerously quiet. That requires a psychiatric evaluation and board review, neither of which happened. He looked at me. Captain Chen, have you been given a psychiatric evaluation? No, sir. Have you had any mental health issues that would prevent you from performing your duties? No, sir. I've been ready and willing to return to tactical operations since the day I was assigned here. Harrison nodded slowly, then turned back to Morrison. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, as of this moment, you are relieved of your command. You will report to the base commander's office for a full investigation into abuse of authority and potential violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Morrison's face went white. Sir, you can't just... I can, and I am. Escort him out. 2 of the other colonels stepped forward and took Morrison by the arms. He looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, Chen. Yes, Harrison said coldly. It is. They led Morrison out of the latrine building. I could hear him protesting all the way down the hall until his voice faded. Harrison turned back to me. Captain Chen, I apologize on behalf of the Marine Corps for what has happened to you. This should never have occurred. Thank you, sir. Now, I need you to understand something. We didn't come here just to rescue you from latrine duty. We came because we have a crisis. What kind of crisis, sir? Harrison pulled up an image on his tablet and showed it to me. It was a satellite photo of a compound in what looked like Middle Eastern terrain. 2 weeks ago, a Marine reconnaissance team was captured behind enemy lines. 15 Marines held in this compound. Every conventional extraction plan has been deemed too risky. Too many civilians in the area, too many variables, too many ways it could go wrong. He looked at me seriously. The Joint Chiefs asked for Phoenix specifically. They said if anyone could plan an impossible rescue, it would be you. We've been searching for you for 3 weeks. I looked at the satellite image, my mind already analyzing approach vectors, defensive positions, potential complications. How much time do I have to plan? 72 hours. After that, intelligence suggests the hostages will be moved to a location we can't track. I'll need access to all available intel. Satellite imagery, ground reports, weather patterns, enemy force composition. You'll have everything you need. Harrison paused. But first, you need to get out of this latrine and get cleaned up. You're coming with us. Where, sir? The Pentagon. You're planning this operation from the highest level. I looked down at my dirty uniform, my rubber gloves, the toilet brush still sitting in the bucket. 20 minutes ago, I had been nobody. A forgotten officer scrubbing toilets. Now, 5 colonels were waiting to escort me to the Pentagon. "Sir," I said quietly, "I'm ready to serve." Harrison smiled slightly. "No, you are, Captain. That's why we came for you." He gestured toward the door. "Let's go bring our Marines home." I stripped off the rubber gloves, dropped them in the bucket, and walked out of that latrine building with 5 colonels flanking me. I didn't look back. Colonel Harrison led me out of the latrine building and into the bright California sunlight. Marines stopped and stared as we walked across the base. 5 colonels escorting a captain in a dirty utility uniform covered in cleaning solution stains. "We need to make a stop first," Harrison said. "You'll need a proper uniform before we leave." He gestured to one of the other colonels, a woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her nameplate read, "Patterson." "Colonel Patterson, take Captain Chen to get cleaned up and into dress uniform. We have a transport leaving in 90 minutes. "Yes, sir," Patterson said, then looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "Come with me, Captain." We walked in silence to the women's barracks. Other female Marines watched us pass, their expressions confused. I could almost hear their thoughts. Why is a colonel escorting the toilet cleaner? Patterson led me to my quarters, a small room I hadn't seen much of in the past 3 weeks. I had been assigned berthing so far from the main facilities that it was basically isolation. "You have 20 minutes, Patterson said. "Shower, dress uniform, and meet me back here." "Yes, ma'am." She paused at the door. "Captain Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course, ma'am." "How did you survive 3 weeks of that? 3 weeks of being treated like you were nothing when you knew what you were capable of?" I sat down on my bunk, suddenly exhausted. "Honestly, ma'am, some days I didn't think I would. Some days I wanted to quit, submit my resignation, and walk away from all of it." "What stopped you?" I looked up at her. Stubbornness mostly, and the knowledge that Morrison was wrong, that I had done the right thing, even if I was being punished for it. I couldn't let him win by breaking me. Patterson nodded slowly. "I read your file on the flight here. Your tactical record is extraordinary. Operation Guardian Shield, the rescue you planned 18 months ago. It's taught at the War College now as an example of innovative thinking under pressure." I didn't know that. "You saved 500 Marines that day, Captain. 500 men and women who went home to their families because you refused to accept that the situation was hopeless." She looked at me seriously. "Morrison tried to erase you, tried to make everyone forget Phoenix existed. But the Pentagon doesn't forget. The Marines you saved don't forget. And now everyone is going to be reminded of exactly who you are." She checked her watch. 19 minutes, Captain. Move." "Yes, ma'am." I showered faster than I ever had in my life, scrubbing away 3 weeks of humiliation along with the smell of cleaning chemicals. I put on my dress uniform, the one I hadn't worn since the day Morrison had me removed from tactical operations. The ribbons on my chest told a story. Navy Cross, Bronze Star with Valor, 2 Purple Hearts, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. I looked at myself in the mirror. This was who I really was, not the woman scrubbing toilets. This? I met Patterson outside with 2 minutes to spare. "Better?" she said approvingly. "Now you look like Phoenix." We walked back to where the colonels were waiting. A black SUV had pulled up, along with 2 escort vehicles. Harrison nodded when he saw me. "Much better, Captain. Now, during the flight to Washington, I need you to understand what you're walking into." "Yes, sir," We got into the SUV. Harrison sat across from me, with Patterson beside him. The other 3 colonels were in the escort vehicles. 18 months ago, Harrison began as we started moving. You planned and executed Operation Guardian Shield. A company of Marines, 200 strong, was pinned down in Kunar Province, Afghanistan, surrounded by enemy forces, low on ammunition, taking heavy casualties. I remember, I said quietly. 3 other companies, another 300 Marines, were attempting to reach them, but were blocked by terrain and enemy positions. Command was preparing to write off the trapped company. Acceptable losses, they called it. I felt my jaw tighten. I remembered that phrase. Acceptable losses. As if 200 lives were just numbers on a spreadsheet. You were a lieutenant then, Harrison continued. A junior tactical officer. You had no authority to propose an alternative plan. But you did anyway. I had to, I said. They were going to let 200 Marines die because the conventional approach wasn't working. Patterson leaned forward. Tell us what you did. I've read the reports, but I want to hear it from you. I took a breath, remembering that day. The desperate situation. The clock ticking down. The knowledge that hundreds of men and women would die unless someone did something. The conventional approach was trying to fight through the enemy lines to reach the trapped company. But the terrain made that impossible. Mountains, narrow passes, enemy fortifications. It would have taken days and cost hundreds more lives. So what did you do? Harrison asked. I looked at the terrain differently. Instead of trying to go through the enemy, I realized we could go around them. There was a dry riverbed, mostly hidden from aerial view, that ran parallel to the enemy lines. If we could move forces through that riverbed at night, we could flank the enemy positions. But the riverbed was heavily mined, Patterson said. The reports mentioned that. It was, but I studied the mine placement patterns. They were predictable, following standard defensive doctrine. I calculated a path through the minefield that would minimize risk. Minimize, not eliminate, Harrison noted. Nothing eliminates risk in war, sir. But the risk of going through the minefield was significantly less than the certainty of losing 200 Marines. And you proposed this plan to your commanding officer, Patterson said. I did. He rejected it immediately. Said it was too risky, too unconventional, that I didn't have the experience to make such recommendations. But you didn't give up. No, ma'am, I went over his head, directly to the brigade commander. I knew it could end my career, but I also knew those Marines were going to die if someone didn't act. Harrison smiled slightly. The brigade commander was Colonel James Thornton. He's a major general now. He told me that when you burst into his operations center with your plan, you looked like you were ready to fight him personally if he said no. I was, I admitted. I had nothing to lose at that point. I was already facing court-martial for going around my CO. But General Thornton listened, Patterson said. He did. He looked at my plan for exactly 3 minutes, asked 2 questions, and then authorized it immediately. He said later that he knew it was either brilliant or insane. But doing nothing was definitely insane, so we might as well try brilliant. Harrison pulled out his tablet and showed me a photograph. It was of a group of Marines, dirty and exhausted but alive, standing in front of a helicopter. 500 Marines, he said. 200 from the trapped company, 300 from the rescue force. All of them alive because you refused to accept acceptable losses. I looked at the photograph, remembering the moment when we got confirmation that the operation had succeeded, that everyone had made it out. I just did what needed to be done, sir. No, Harrison said firmly. You did what no one else had the courage or the vision to do. You saw a solution where everyone else saw only death. That's not just doing what needed to be done. That's genius. The SUV pulled onto the base airfield, where a military transport plane was waiting. After that operation, Patterson said, "You were promoted to captain, awarded the Navy Cross. Given command of your own tactical operations unit, you became a legend." And then Morrison happened, I said bitterly. Harrison's expression darkened. Yes. Then Morrison happened. Tell us about that. We got out of the SUV and walked toward the plane. I gathered my thoughts, trying to organize the sequence of events that had led to my downfall. 6 months ago, I was transferred to Camp Pendleton under Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's command. He was responsible for training and tactical planning for rotating units. And you clashed immediately, Patterson said. Not at first. For the first month, everything was fine. Professional. But then we started planning a major training exercise, urban combat scenario, simulated hostage rescue. Morrison proposed a plan that was, I paused, searching for a diplomatic word. Conventional. Standard breach and clear tactics. By the book. But you saw problems, Harrison prompted. Multiple problems, sir. The scenario involved civilians in the target building. Morrison's plan would have resulted in significant civilian casualties in a real situation. I ran the simulations a dozen times. Every iteration showed the same result. So you proposed an alternative. We climbed the stairs into the plane. The interior was configured for command, briefings, with computer stations and communications equipment. I proposed a more surgical approach, I continued. Smaller teams, more precise entry points, better intelligence utilization. It would take longer, but would minimize civilian casualties and reduce risk to our forces. And Morrison rejected it, Patterson said. He didn't just reject it, ma'am. He humiliated me in front of the entire planning team. Called my approach overly cautious. Said I was letting my gender make me soft, that real Marines didn't worry about a few civilian casualties in training. Harrison's hands clenched into fists. He said that. In those words? Yes, sir. And when I tried to defend my plan with data and simulations, he accused me of insubordination. Said I was undermining his authority. The plane's engine started. We strapped into seats as the aircraft began taxiing. What happened next? Harrison asked. I should have dropped it, I said. I should have saluted and moved on. But I couldn't. Because I knew that if this training exercise went wrong, Marines would be injured, maybe killed. And it would be my fault for staying silent. So you pressed the issue. I took my concerns to Morrison's executive officer. Showed him the simulations, the casualty projections. He agreed with me, but said there was nothing he could do. Morrison was the commanding officer. Patterson shook her head. The system failed you. The system worked exactly as designed, ma'am. Chain of command, respect for rank, following orders. The problem is that the system assumes people in authority are making good decisions. When they're not, the system can't adapt. The plane lifted off, climbing into the sky. Through the window, I watched Camp Pendleton grow smaller below us. Morrison implemented his plan, Harrison said. And it failed. Catastrophically, sir. 6 Marines injured, 2 seriously. The simulated hostages all died. The exercise was shut down after 30 minutes because the casualty rate was too high. And afterward? Afterward, Morrison needed someone to blame. He couldn't admit his plan was flawed. So he blamed me. Said I had sabotaged the exercise by demoralizing the team with my objections. that my negative attitude had caused the failures. He filed formal charges, Patterson said, looking at a file on her tablet. Insubordination, undermining command authority, conduct unbecoming an officer. Yes, ma'am. I was removed from tactical operations, stripped of my clearances, and assigned to latrine duty pending a formal hearing. When was that hearing scheduled? Harrison asked. I looked at him. It wasn't, sir. Morrison kept saying it was pending review, that he was gathering evidence. But 3 weeks went by with nothing. I realized he was never going to hold a hearing. He was just going to leave me there, cleaning toilets, until I either quit or everyone forgot I existed. Harrison pulled out his phone and made a call. General Thornton? It's Harrison. I found Phoenix. You're not going to believe where she was. He listened for a moment, his expression growing darker. Cleaning latrines, sir. For 3 weeks. Because a lieutenant colonel couldn't handle being wrong. More listening. Yes, sir. We're en route to the Pentagon now. I'll have a full report on your desk by this evening. And, sir? Morrison needs to be removed from command immediately. This goes beyond simple abuse of authority. He hung up and looked at me. General Thornton remembers you, Captain. When I told him where we found you, he used language I haven't heard since he was a drill instructor. Patterson smiled slightly. The general has a soft spot for Phoenix. You made him look good when you saved 500 Marines. He's not happy that someone tried to bury you. Harrison leaned forward. Captain Chen, I need you to understand what's happening here. This isn't just about rescuing you from an unjust punishment. This is about the Marine Corps recognizing that we almost lost one of our most valuable assets because one insecure officer couldn't handle criticism. Changes are coming, sir? I asked. Changes have already started, Harrison said. By the time we land in Washington, Morrison will be under formal investigation. His command will be reviewed. Every decision he made regarding you will be scrutinized. And me, sir? What happens to me? Harrison smiled. That's the good part, Captain. You're about to find out why the Pentagon has been searching for you for 3 weeks. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. Harrison unbuckled and gestured for me to follow him to a briefing station at the center of the aircraft. Patterson and the other 3 colonels joined us, forming a circle around a large digital display table. Captain Chen, Harrison began, pulling up a satellite image. 2 weeks ago, a Marine Force reconnaissance team was conducting intelligence-gathering operations in Yemen. 15 Marines. Their mission was to document enemy weapons caches and report back. The image showed a desert compound surrounded by walls. On day 3 of their operation, they were compromised. Ambushed by a local militia group with ties to hostile foreign actors. The team fought their way out initially, but was forced into a tactical retreat. He zoomed in on the compound. They're being held here. A fortified compound 12 kilometers outside of Sana'a. Intelligence suggests the militia is negotiating to sell them to a foreign power. We have 72 hours before they're moved to a location we can't track. Why hasn't there been a rescue attempt? I asked, studying the compound layout. Because every plan we've developed has unacceptable risk factors, Patterson said. The compound is in a populated area. Civilian buildings on 3 sides. One approach road that's heavily watched. Interior layout is unknown. Guard force estimated at 40 to 60 hostiles. She pulled up tactical assessments. SEAL team proposed a nighttime helicopter insertion. Rejected due to civilian casualties and alerting the hostiles. Delta Force suggested a ground assault. Rejected because the single approach road creates a fatal funnel. Air Force wanted precision strikes. Rejected because we can't confirm hostage location and collateral damage would be massive. So you're stuck, I said. We're stuck, Harrison agreed. Every conventional approach either risks the hostages or creates an international incident with civilian casualties. We need something unconventional. Something only Phoenix could create. I studied the satellite imagery, letting my mind work through the problem. 40 years of military doctrine had created predictable patterns. Predictable patterns created vulnerabilities. How current is this satellite data? I asked. 36 hours, one of the other colonels said. Colonel Martinez, according to his nameplate. We have continuous coverage. Updates every 6 hours. Give me all the imagery from the past 2 weeks. I need to see patterns. Guard rotations, vehicle movements, civilian traffic. Already loaded, Martinez said, pulling up additional files. What are you thinking? I'm thinking everyone is approaching this like a military operation. Assault, extract, exfiltrate. But that's not what this is. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Explain. This isn't a military target. It's a criminal operation. They're holding hostages for money, not strategic value. That means they're thinking like criminals, not soldiers. I zoomed in on the surrounding area. Criminals have different priorities. They're worried about law enforcement, about rival gangs, about protecting their asset. They're not prepared for unconventional military tactics because they're not thinking militarily. So we exploit that, Patterson said, understanding dawning in her expression. Exactly. We don't assault the compound. We make them bring the hostages to us. The colonels exchanged glances. Keep talking, Harrison said. I pulled up the compound's surroundings, studying the civilian buildings, the roads, the infrastructure. What do we know about the militia group holding them? Colonel Williams, the 4th colonel, pulled up an intelligence file. Local group called the Desert Brotherhood. Approximately 200 fighters total, but only 40 to 60 at this location. Leadership is tribal, focused on profit more than ideology. They've held hostages before, always successfully negotiated ransoms. So they're confident, I said. They believe they're in control of the situation. They are in control, Williams said. They have the hostages. They have the location advantage. They have time. No, I said. They only think they have those things. What if we make them believe the situation has changed? Harrison leaned forward. I'm listening. What if we make them think a rival group is planning to steal the hostages? Or that local authorities have been tipped off? Something that makes staying at that compound more dangerous than moving. You want to spook them, Patterson said. I want to manipulate them. Make them believe that their safest option is to move the hostages to a new location. A location we choose. How? Martinez asked. I traced a route on the map. We create a crisis, multiple crises. First, we spread rumors through local channels that a rival militia is planning to attack the compound. The Desert Brotherhood has enemies. Make them think one is coming for their prize. Williams nodded slowly. We have local assets. CIA has contacts in the area. We could spread misinformation. Second, I continued, we create a fake security threat. Make them think their location has been compromised. Maybe a drone overflight that they're meant to see. Maybe intercepted communications suggesting the Americans know where the hostages are. Make them paranoid, Harrison said. Make them desperate to move. And when they do, we give them only one good option. One route that seems safe, that avoids their rivals and the Americans. A route we control, Patterson said, excitement in her voice. Exactly. We line the route with our forces, hidden, waiting. When they move the hostages, we intercept at a location of our choosing. away from civilians, away from their reinforcements, in terrain that favors us. Harrison studied the map. Where's the intercept point? I traced a path from the compound through the desert. Here, 20 kilometers east. There's a narrow valley between these two ridges. Only one road through. If we position teams on the high ground, we can create a kill box. Stop the convoy, neutralize the guards, extract the hostages. What's the timeline? Patterson asked. We need 48 hours to set up the manipulation, spread the rumors, create the visible threats, make them nervous. Then we force their hand with a crisis they can't ignore. What kind of crisis? I thought for a moment. We make them think their buyer is getting impatient. Have our CIA assets pose as representatives of the foreign power trying to buy the hostages. Tell the Desert Brotherhood the buyer wants them moved immediately to a new location for the exchange. Provide specific coordinates. The coordinates we choose, Martinez said. The coordinates we control. Make it seem like it's coming from the buyer, not from us. They'll move because they don't want to lose the sale. Williams pulled up forced deployment options. If we're doing this, we need assets in position fast. Special operations teams for the intercept. ISR assets for surveillance. Quick reaction force in case it goes wrong. Harrison made several calls, speaking in clipped military jargon to various commands. I heard fragments. JSOC authorization. Special operations package. ISR tasking priority. Immediate deployment. After 20 minutes, he hung up and looked at me. You have your teams, Captain. SEAL Team 6 is spinning up now. They'll be in position within 36 hours. Delta Force is on standby as QRF. CIA is coordinating the information operation. Patterson pulled up a detailed operations plan template. I need you to wargame this, Captain. Every contingency. What if they don't move? What if they split the hostages? What if they detect our forces? I spent the next 2 hours working through scenarios. Patterson challenged every assumption. Martinez poked holes in the logistics. Williams questioned the intelligence requirements. Harrison played devil's advocate. It was brutal, exhausting, and exactly what the plan needed. By the time we started our descent into Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington, we had a workable operation. Not perfect, but nothing ever was. War was chaos managed through planning and adaptability. What's the success rate? Harrison asked as the plane touched down. If everything goes according to plan, 85% chance of recovering all hostages with minimal casualties. And if it doesn't go according to plan, then we adapt. That's what Phoenix does. The plane taxied to a secure area where 3 black SUVs waited. Harrison stood. Captain Chen, when we get to the Pentagon, you're going to brief this plan to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That includes the Chairman, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and likely the Secretary of Defense. I felt my stomach tighten. Sir, I'm not exactly prepared for that level of briefing. You just spent 2 hours defending your plan against 5 colonels who were actively trying to break it. You're ready, Patterson added. And Captain? When you walk into that room, remember who you are. You're Phoenix. The officer who saved 500 Marines. The tactical genius who sees solutions no one else can see. They need you more than you need them. We drove through Washington in silence. I watched the city pass by through tinted windows, trying to calm my nerves. 3 weeks ago, I had been scrubbing toilets, convinced my career was over. Now I was about to brief the highest levels of military leadership on a hostage rescue operation. The SUVs pulled into the Pentagon's secure entrance. We went through multiple security checkpoints, each one more stringent than the last. Harrison led me through corridors I had only seen in photographs. The walls were lined with portraits of previous military leaders, their eyes seeming to follow us. We stopped outside a conference room with Marines standing guard. Harrison turned to me. "This is it, Captain. Everyone in that room is here because of you. Because they know Phoenix is the only one who can bring those Marines home." He opened the door. The conference room was massive. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs occupied by officers with more stars than I had ever seen in one place. 4-star generals, admirals, the most powerful military leaders in the nation. They all turned to look at me. At the head of the table sat a 4-star general who could only be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice carrying authority that filled the room. "We've been waiting for you. Colonel Harrison says you have a plan to bring our Marines home." I straightened my spine, pushed down my nerves, and let Phoenix take over. "Yes, sir, I do." "Then brief us, Captain. Time is short, and 15 Marines are counting on us." I walked to the front of the room, pulled up the satellite imagery on the main display, and began. "Gentlemen, the conventional approaches to this rescue have failed because everyone is thinking conventionally. I'm here to show you how we turn the enemy's strengths into weaknesses and bring our Marines home within 72 hours. For the next 45 minutes, I walked them through every detail. The psychological manipulation, the route selection, the intercept point, the contingencies. They asked hard questions. I had good answers. When I finished, the room was silent. Then the chairman spoke. "Captain Chen, that's the most innovative operational plan I've seen in 20 years. If it works, it's brilliant. If it fails, it's my responsibility, not yours." He looked around the table. "Gentlemen, I'm authorizing this operation. Captain Chen will oversee tactical planning and coordinate with Special Operations Command. This is now Operation Phoenix Rising." He looked at me directly. "Captain, you're about to save 15 more Marines. Don't let anyone tell you you're not exactly where you belong." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." As the meeting broke up, the Commandant of the Marine Corps approached me. He was a barrel-chested man, with a face that looked carved from granite. "Captain Chen, I've read your file. I know what Morrison did to you. That ends now." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Effective immediately, you're promoted to Major. You'll be assigned to the Pentagon's Strategic Planning Division after this operation concludes. And Morrison will face a board of inquiry for his actions." He extended his hand. "Welcome back, Major Chen. The Marine Corps needs officers like you." I shook his hand, overwhelmed. "Thank you, sir." After he walked away, Harrison appeared at my side. "How does it feel, Major?" "Like I'm dreaming, sir." "You're not. This is real. You earned this." He gestured toward the door. "Now let's go make sure Operation Phoenix Rising succeeds. We have 15 Marines to bring home." 72 hours later, I stood in the Pentagon Operations Center watching live drone feeds from Yemen. The manipulation had worked perfectly. The Desert Brotherhood believed their buyer was demanding immediate transfer. CIA assets had convinced them a rival militia was closing in. They were panicked, desperate to move. "Major Chen," Colonel Harrison said beside me, "convoy entering the kill box now." On the screens, 3 vehicles drove through the narrow valley between the ridges. Exactly where we predicted. Exactly where we wanted them. SEAL teams were invisible on the high ground. Delta Force held the exit. The trap was set. "Execute," I said into the radio. What happened next took 4 minutes, but felt like hours. Flashbangs lit up the valley. Precision fire disabled the vehicles. The guards, caught completely by surprise, surrendered within seconds. They had expected a simple transfer, not a surgical military operation. All hostages secure. The SEAL commander's voice crackled through the radio. 15 Marines, alive and ambulatory. 0 friendly casualties. Mission success. The operations center erupted. Cheers, applause, officers shaking hands. Someone clapped me on the back so hard I stumbled forward. Harrison grabbed my shoulders, his eyes wet. You did it, Major. You brought them home. We brought them home, sir. No, he said firmly. This was Phoenix. This was all you. I watched the screen as the rescued Marines were loaded into helicopters. 15 men who would see their families again. 15 lives saved because someone had been willing to think differently. Colonel Patterson appeared at my side. The chairman wants to see you, Major. Now. I followed her through the corridors to a private office. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs sat behind his desk, and standing beside him was the commandant of the Marine Corps. Major Chen, the chairman said, standing. That was extraordinary work. Thank you, sir. The commandant stepped forward. Major, Operation Phoenix Rising will be studied for years as an example of innovative tactical thinking. You took an impossible situation and made it look easy. It wasn't easy, sir. It was calculated risk. The best operations always are, he said. Which brings me to why you're here. He pulled out a document. Effective immediately, you're being assigned to the Pentagon's Strategic Planning Division. You'll work directly with JSOCs on high-risk operations. Your security clearance is being elevated, and in 6 months, you'll be considered for promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes, the chairman said with a slight smile. We need officers who can see solutions others miss. Officers who have the courage to be right, even when it costs them. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. One more thing, the commandant said. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison has been court-martialed, stripped of rank and dishonorably discharged. The investigation revealed he punished 3 other officers for similar reasons. All of them are being reviewed for reinstatement. Justice. Slow but certain. 2 weeks later, I stood in a ceremony room at the Pentagon wearing my new major insignia. The 15 rescued Marines stood in formation beside their families. The commandant approached and pinned another medal on my chest, next to my Navy Cross and Bronze Star. Major Rebecca Chen, for exceptional tactical planning resulting in the successful rescue of 15 United States Marines with 0 casualties. You are awarded the Defense Superior Service Medal. He stepped back and saluted. I returned it crisply. The Marine Corps is proud to have you, Major. Phoenix has risen. The rescued Marines approached one by one. Each handshake felt like redemption. Each thank you erased another memory of scrubbing toilets. One young corporal, barely 20 years old, grabbed my hand with both of his. Ma'am, my mom got to hug me again because of you. I'll never forget that. Never. His mother stood behind him, tears streaming down her face. She mouthed 2 words. Thank you. After the ceremony, I walked through the Pentagon to my new office. The door had a nameplate. Major Rebecca Chen, Strategic Planning Division. Inside my desk held a stack of files marked Priority and Top Secret. My walls had maps of conflict zones around the world. My computer had access to intelligence most people would never see. This was real. This was mine. Harrison appeared in the doorway. Settling in, Major? Starting to, sir. It's surreal. 4 weeks ago, I was cleaning latrines. 4 weeks ago, an insecure officer tried to destroy you because you threatened his ego. But you survived. More than survived. You proved that Phoenix can't be buried. He set a file on my desk. Your first official assignment. Hostage situation in Somalia. 3 aid workers, hostile territory, no good options. I opened the file, my mind already working through possibilities. Sounds impossible. Harrison smiled. That's why they're giving it to Phoenix. After he left, I sat at my desk and looked at the medal ceremony photo someone had placed in a frame. 15 Marines, alive and smiling. Their families whole. Their futures possible. All because I had refused to give up. Refused to let Morrison break me. Refused to believe that 3 weeks of humiliation defined my worth. My phone buzzed. A text from General Thornton. Proud of you, Major. Never let anyone dim your light again. I wouldn't. I couldn't. Because I was Phoenix, and Phoenix always rises from the ashes. I opened the Somalia file and began reading. Somewhere in those pages was a solution no one else had seen yet. An impossible rescue that would become possible. That's what I did. That's who I was. Morrison had tried to bury me in a latrine building, tried to make me invisible, tried to erase Phoenix from existence. Instead, he had given me 3 weeks to remember exactly who I was. 3 weeks to build an unbreakable determination. 3 weeks to prepare for my return. And when I rose higher than ever before. I picked up my pen and began making notes on the Somalia situation. 15 Marines had come home because of Phoenix. Now it was time to bring 3 more people home. The work continued. The mission continued. Phoenix continued. Always rising, never falling again.